Welcome to Book Club for Movies. It's April 5th. I'm Ryan Miller. I'll have what he's having. It's Matt Amberg.
It's gonna be dog food and leftover latex.
Harry Met Sally. It's a good movie.
It is.
Probably.
It
I don't
is.
think I've ever seen it all the way through.
Oh yeah, Beth and I, the wife and I, we just rewatched it. She just watched it for the first time over Valentine's Day, I think. Actually,
We'll have what she's having. I'm sorry. This is Book Club for Movies. We watch a movie every week, and then we talk about it every week. It's almost like they're connected.
It's like we club books into
So
movies.
If you want to be a part of that, just watch the movie. It's kind of that easy.
Yeah, join us. Then let us know what you think about it. Podcast at bookclubformovies.com.
Yeah.
Or just send us a tweet, Book Club for Movies, whatever.
Or Facebooks.
This week's movie was brought to us by a suggestion from friend of the show, Bitter Gourd. Thank you at Bitter Gourd for this one. We watched David Cronenberg's 1981 film Scanners. This flick comes in at an hour and 43 minutes. It was written and directed by Mr. Cronenberg himself, starring Jennifer O'Neill, Stephen Lack, Patrick McGoohan, and the incomparable Michael Ironside. Michael keeps his arms on Ironside. Good for him on this one.
It's the only thing he keeps on, maybe, in this one.
As a special note, also, makeup effects here done by Dick Smith. That was a big get for Cronenberg on this one, too.
I was going to say, did this launch his career, or was he...
Dick Smith.
Because it's pretty good.
Dick Smith's been around. Dick Smith was already like 200 when this movie came out, dude.
I love that I got flack for that. That is appropriate, but still, I love that I love we're in a position where I can say I've never heard of Dick Smith before, essentially, and you can look at me like my head's exploding.
Yeah, no, I'm scannered. I just got scannered.
Love it.
Scanners is a movie about a man with telekinetic and telepathic powers that is finding out he's not the only one with these powers, and that a company called Consec has been seeking out the scanners for their own purposes. And we are brought into the film where our main character is tasked with not only learning about his ability, but finding the rogue scanner that has caused havoc all over the state of world.
Yeah, what state does this take place in? Is that
I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
It was filmed in Montreal, so, figure that out.
Yeah, of course it's Canadian. Duh.
Yeah, Cronenberg's pretty Canadian.
The Canadian classic.
Yeah, this movie is essentially about telekinesis and telekinetics and telepaths fighting each other.
And yet, I don't know if it's essentially about that at all.
It's not. Scanners is a spy movie. It's an espionage movie, and it also is a sci-fi telekinesis movie with one major scene that, let's just get it out of the way. We'll talk about it. Okay. It's the sequence where the dude's head blows up. We've all seen it 1,000 times. Every GIF of the world's been there. The one thing that we'll start off in mentioning, that sequence was actually the opening of the movie. Yeah. And
it's how Michael Ironside is introduced, and it's not even like it's not that pivotal, actually. It kind of is, but it's definitely not something the movie lingers on or even refers to ever again after it happens.
But as a fun fact, the sequence itself, all that stuff at the in the
classroom.
Yeah, that was all actually at the beginning of the movie, like the actual literal beginning of the movie when it was first put out, or when it was first being cut together. And because the sequence was so well shot, so iconic, Cronenberg knew that was going to be the thing that people glommed onto. So he recut the movie. So that was about, I guess it's about a little under quarter of the way into the movie. So you have all the first sequences where we meet our main character who's being chased through the mall after causing a woman some pain, but he doesn't know why or how, and we don't know why or how. It just, there's some sounds and she's suddenly in a lot of pain. Then we get pushed forward a little bit where Michael Ironside's character is introduced, and he's introduced in a classroom setting where Consec, this company that is ostensibly they're a mercenary company before those kind of existed. They're like That's what they provide. They provide black ops stuff to the government.
When is that detailed?
They mention it that they're using they provide, I guess, the black ops weaponry and security systems. That's what they do for the government. That's what ConSec is there for.
Wouldn't have been able to tell you that.
Yeah, they do mention it. It's a thing that, like, they are purveyors of these things, and they have a scanner who's going to try and show investors what scanners can do, so that they can then further the experimentation on, you know, expanding the scanners program, and beyond that, using scanners in military form, because why wouldn't you?
Sure.
So the scanner that gets his head exploded, they're trying to show this off. He picks Michael Ironside, who knew about this. Michael Ironside comes down and fights him back and causes his head to explode. And that sequence, that shot, like that explosion, is one of the best head explosions ever. Achieved,
Sure,
by the way,
sure.
with a shotgun from behind, and they filled the head with dog food, hamburger, and like chunks of latex and stuff. That's how it was done.
Which is oddly appropriate if you think about it.
And when you look at it, it looks gross. Like, it looks disturbing as all hell.
It's still today. It's acceptable.
And so once we hit this point, Michael Ironside, now we're pretty convinced he's the bad guy. The doctor, who kind of seems to be running the scanner program, tasks this one person that was brought in with finding Michael Ironside and ostensibly killing him. That's what they ultimately want, because he's the one scanner that apparently can do more than the others and knows what's going on. So that's kind of the plot.
It is. And I don't even know that I got that much, honestly, the first time around, because speaking of just the intro, not the head explosion yet, but we open up on our protagonist, Cameron Vale, right?
Yeah.
Stephen
Lack.
Lack. Okay. I think mine was better, but that's fine. He's in a mall and starts affecting this girl on accident. But I'm a sucker for movies that begin kind of wordlessly. Like, I still think the first, whatever that is, 15, 20 minutes of WALL-E are some of the best cinema that's ever been done. Mm-hmm. You know, not a word spoken. This film nails it in the same way. Like, the sound design and the sounds that are used, it's wordless still, I'm fine saying, but it's done so well that it's that same exact feeling. Like, man, this is and this is going to be the weird thing, like we can go back and forth on stuff that we take away from this, but this is a weird work of art still. And maybe we got into some of this when we had that quick discussion on The Day the Earth Stood Still, very much in kind of B-movie trappings.
Sure.
This is one of those movies. Like, it's in that, but it's not. Like, it's very much knows what it's doing and is way more of a work of art, like masterpiece, than I'm sure people gave it credit for at the time. Like,
no. I mean, it was certainly not. It wasn't lambasted like you're thinking. I don't think it was certainly not like that. It had its fans. It had followers. It had an audience. And it was, much of that audience was certainly, you know, coming from the standard horror fare, but this came out at a pretty decent time where the gore stuff, especially the head explosion thing, that was we were really getting into that. Like, that was really just like kind of getting into the middle of it. So that group, that whole section of people that were going to see it anyways. And then Cronenberg has had a name. I mean, this is his like 8th movie or something in his filmography.
Really? Oh, okay,
so
okay.
People kind of had an idea of what Cronenberg could do. But it was certainly not like a huge commercial success. This is not a movie that you're going to find on anybody's,
Gotcha.
Any like, top 10 list
Right.
in regards to financial poll or anything like that.
And I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's not, the intro isn't a one-off either. Like, what he does with sound throughout the entire film is kind of nuts. Like, it's very crafted. Like, the whole thing's dubbed, from what I can tell. Like, I don't think there's any location audio. Like, it's Foley and dubbing and stuff
Probably,
like that.
yeah.
Which is fine. Like, and I think it fits this film maybe more than others, because a lot of times that will annoy me. But the way this thing is crafted, so purposefully, it totally fits because it's the closest thing I could come to was I took a trip with my brother once, and about halfway through the trip, maybe like 30 minutes in, he rips his wallet out of his back pocket and throws it across the car. Like, man, this thing's been bugging me for the whole trip. And I instantly understand because, like, he never mentioned it. It's because it wasn't at the forefront of his mind. It's like we were having a great conversation. We were doing all this stuff. But in the back of his mind, he just knows there's been this pain in his butt that he hasn't been able to put a finger on, or he's kind of been ignoring. This movie does that with audio, like maybe it's more iconic than I even know, but that kind of slow whine in the background. But it's different and it changes depending on what's going on and who's doing it and what the point of view is. But it's done in the background in such a way that half the time you don't know necessarily that it's there, but when you realize it, you're like, what the heck? Like, and
it's been there for way longer than you thought it was.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, so Cronenberg uses audio cues in this movie significantly. Now here's something that may blow your mind after all that you're saying, because work of art, I think, is very apt here, and this goes to the dialogue, and in particular, when you talk about how this movie comes together. This movie comes together for two specific reasons. One of them is Cronenberg's ability to keep a vision together and cobble things together, and the other is the editing. Because this movie there was no rehearsals done, and nobody had a final script.
Wait,
this movie barely had a script to begin with. While they were filming, Cronenberg is writing pages and he's giving pages. They cobble this together at the end. He knows what the movie is. Cronenberg's
no way.
Now, and this is one of those things. Stephen Lack has mentioned this. If you ever go back and watch this movie, keep really close, pay attention to Stephen Lack's character. Our protagonist, Cameron Vale, 50% of his lines are not statements, they're not assertions, they're questions, because they didn't know what the hell he didn't have any way to react because he didn't know what was coming. They didn't know. So they had this so he ends up giving this really interesting performance that is
interesting,
that is biased from something that most people don't know, but when you watch it on screen, it fits, like, everything about the way he's doing things, and it's one of those pieces of trivia where you go, how did you get this movie out of that? And then finding out, again, going back and finding out that, yeah, Michael Ironside can corroborate these things. All of these people can say, yeah, this was Cronenberg has said repeatedly, this was the most difficult production he's ever been on, partially because they had no script. The other part was that Stephen Lack and Jennifer O'Neill did not like each other.
Oh, really?
At all.
Yeah, sure.
Doesn't show up on film, though. Like, the moments towards the end where they need to be connected, where she is scanned by the unborn baby and all that, fine. It works. It comes across. You don't get any of that tension.
I mean, it doesn't come across because
there's not enough for it to come across. I mean,
well, no, that because I'll go back to it being crafted like that. That fits in a way. Like
it does.
I don't think Stephen Lack's performance is great. Like, honestly, but here it's perfect type thing, I guess, is what I'm saying. So maybe it is great, I guess, but whatever.
It's contextually great.
His relationship with her, yeah, in the movie, I get it. They're supposed to care about each other, and there's a moment where he blows off the doctor to go rescue her after they get to Consec, where you kind of get I think that's the biggest action I get in the film, where I get that, he has feelings for her or cares about her or whatever. But all of their actual interactions, all the interactions in the entire film are just these weird staccato. Yeah. Like nobody does that. And you explaining how it was filmed, I guess that makes perfect sense. But how that becomes what this was crafted to be, still fits. And it maybe art. I mean, it's weird, like it's snake art. Eating its I guess that's it. Like, it's to some extent it's the snake eating its tail, I guess. Like, we don't know how much the movie is made by this or how much the movie makes this type thing, but at some point it doesn't matter. Like, at some point the cinematography is still great. At some point and I didn't know this about Cronenberg, so this makes even more sense. The world that's created, like this, I know enough about Cronenberg to know that this feels like a Cronenberg film. Like, it's sloppy, or not sloppy. It's not sloppy, actually. That's the wrong word. It's chunky. Like it's
That's a good word for it.
but it's okay. So next scene chronologically, this will get us back into it.
Okay.
When Cameron Vale now has to go and find Michael Ironsides, he has to do so by means of another scanner that he has a lead. It's the only lead he has. It's the lead the doctor gives him. And it's this guy, the scanner, that creates art. Like he has a gallery show, and he goes to the gallery show. He figures out where the guy is living by scanning somebody while he's there. And it's this idea, and the line is used from the doctor that the scanner, the artist, is participating in something called rehabilitation through art.
Yeah.
So he goes to this guy's studio, and of course the art is grotesque, and the conversation intensifies until they literally walk inside of a head to continue the conversation. So there's this back and again, this is really early on in the movie. There's this thing at the beginning of the movie where I'm like, is this ham-fisted? Or is this, because it still looks really good, and the themes that it's actually technically dealing with are fantastic in a way, because it is this movie where I know heads explode, but he's created this kind of ham-fisted, I guess, I'm not sure yet, critique on art, within art. And then this is where it maybe gets even the weirdest, right? The one thing that comes to mind is freaking Picasso, right?
Okay.
Before Picasso was Picasso, he was classically trained, right?
Right.
Like he's putting out paintings that are as good as anything you've seen during the Renaissance era. Like he knows that first and foremost, and then he Picasso's the hell out of stuff, right?
Sure.
So you get the feeling that Cronenberg's like this dude, and there are bits of it, like I said, the cinematography and all this stuff. But guess what? We're gonna Picasso some heads along the way, right?
Sure.
It has this push and pull to it that at the very beginning I don't know what to make of it. That absolutely pays out through the rest of the film, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and some of the things that you touch on are pretty fun.
Sorry,
like,
a lot there. I know.
Like there's the as you go through the artist's room, there are some very specific references in that room, and I think the one that pulls out for me, because Cronenberg, one of his traits, if you're unfamiliar with his films, is body horror. He is really into body horror.
That much I could tell you.
He loves the concept of the limits of what our organs and skin can do, and what happens when we change them. Sometimes it's when we change them on purpose, sometimes it's by accident, sometimes it's the melding of things. And this, one of the things that they do end up getting to at the end is and this is another prescient weird thing from Cronenberg too, is the connection to machines. So I guess let me jump back for one moment, because when they're explaining how the scanning works and how these telepaths and telekinetics, how they connect, it's that they essentially are connecting to another person's nervous system. So their nervous systems become one. And in that process, the one person who has the stronger nervous system or the scanning ability has more strength over the other.
Sure.
And at one point towards the end of the movie, he is required to meld with a computer, because a computer also has what is ostensibly that kind of system. You know, it's got a nervous system. And so they kind of, that's something else that he toys with. But jumping back to...
And we'll come back to that. Like that was actually a watershed moment during the film. Like stuff jumped off. Like that was way more of a thing, I guess, in my head when it hit. But there's a lot to it. We'll get there.
But when you go back to the artist scene, there's all of the things that you said. They're all grotesque. They're all body horror. They're all things, stretched faces like that. But there are a bunch of references to other things in there, and one of them in particular that I think is very apt for the movie is there's a Twilight Zone reference, and it's one of the sculptures is similar to a very famous Twilight Zone episode where the doctors have pig faces.
Oh, really?
Which again, it's a Scanners touches on one of those themes being not everything is as it seems, and there's always a little bit more to look for beyond the first impression. Like this movie. Like that's perfect example.
This is context to surface to that is the message.
And and then there's that whole sequence where the artist he essentially lives inside his own head, and that's like that's what they're getting at. You know, it's a very on the nose thing while not being on the nose if you're not paying attention to it. And then the other interesting part of that, which by the way, I don't know if this is something that maybe I just feel like I'm trying to be smarter than I want to be. The fact that he's a scanner, and one of the things that scanners have problems with is they hear everybody. They hear everything all the time, which is why he rehabilitates through art so that he can focus, and that's all he's thinking about, all he's doing. And in this particular moment where a scanner has figured out how to control the scanning ability without the use of drugs, without the use of anything else, is inviting somebody else into his own head. It's kind of one of those fun little things that helps our main character take a step forward.
No, I mean, number one, this show is only us trying to feel or sound smarter than we are, so we're okay.
Okay, good.
Number two, yeah, because the thing that follows from that is the fight, and I think some of this is that it's from the era. Like, if there were a scanner movie made today, which there are, I guess is the problem. Like,
there are
daily probably.
There are sequels.
Like when somebody in Scanners, this movie, is scanning somebody else, like they move their head or their hands a lot. You know, like if we got a Scanners movie today, there probably would be a whole lot less of that.
It would be a whole lot of them looking real serious,
right,
like touching their
forehead.
You know, it would be
twitching,
a very Professor
like
X thing, you know, or Magneto.
Yes. So I think that there's some of that again doesn't matter, because while I'm asking myself if this movie is ham-fisted, like, and there is that moment where they walk into the head. It's followed up by the fight scene where it is very much so like he's swinging his head to like send people flying that are then exploding or lighting on fire or something like that. Actually, I don't know if anybody lights on fire then, do they? That's later.
Yeah, I don't remember.
It just encapsulates the whole thing so well that Cronenberg obviously knew, you know, what people's idea of art was going to be when this thing came out, and he's giving them art in the movie and he's giving them the movie.
Oh yeah, yeah.
On two different levels.
I also love you mentioned the fight scene, and this is something of that time. I just love this, that every single person in that movie, when there is a gun involved, there's like one person with a pistol, everybody else has shotguns. Like they're all hiding them in some places. They're walking around with them in their jackets and stuff. They're like, oh yeah, a shotgun here.
Yeah, that's fine. I would imagine they're a bit messier than a pistol.
Which he is a fan of. Which again, I think is funny that for a guy who does body horror, this is not the goriest movie in the world.
No.
There's really only two sequences. There's the head explosion, which for all intents and purposes, by the way, that sequence happens like that. Like the head explodes. It's
doesn't replay it in slow motion. Doesn't even show you the aftermath.
No,
honestly.
and actually, it was something I was looking for this time. There's a whole bunch of camera pulls where they show like further out. There's no gore anywhere. It's like they just took the body away, and there's nothing on the table. Nothing.
There is a ton that's not shown in this movie. Like there's several headshots. There's a suicide not shown. I mean, quote unquote suicide. It's just not shown. Like the shots happen off camera,
and it's great. It works so well. It's so much. It goes back to that show a little, but let everybody imagine a lot. And you get a lot from that head explosion, which then gives you, I think, it puts you in a frame of like, oh man, if he gets shot in the head, oh, it's gonna be gross. And then you never see it, and it's like, you know. And
in a way, it kind of just we don't get it's a slow build until the end of the film too, which is important. But before we get there, we move on from that fight. He connects with the girl who he finds is kind of this group of scanners that, again, not a ton of this is explained, so I don't know.
They're like
how much
hippie
of this
scanners.
you just know. Yeah,
they're
but
just kind of hippies.
They're a group of good scanners, but they seem to be aware of Michael Ironsides and are against him.
Yeah. They know that the character's name is Revik, that Revik is out there,
right.
But they also understand, and what they touch on that nobody else touches on in the movie is they all realize that scanning together makes them more powerful, which is a thread that is unfortunately dropped, probably because where are you going to go with it when the fight isn't really between, unless you're going to use multiple people like that, and that does, I guess, you know what? I take it back. That thread doesn't drop. That thread perfectly does get tied up at the end.
Very true.
So
actually, sure.
They do, because they do realize that scanning together makes them more powerful. And then in the process of it, they're also kind of like out of it. And so they're like, Revik's men come kick down the door and kills at least half of them.
Right. And that's where somebody lights on fire, actually, I think. That's the...
Yeah, because she has pretty decent powers too, and she flips them all back, and one of them bursts into flames. Yeah. Right.
So plot wise, they're together now, and it's kind of him and Jennifer O'Neill, Kim Obrist are basically the ones now. Like, kind of everybody is dying by the wayside, and they're the ones left over. So it becomes them against Michael Ironside's also trying to unfold. And maybe this is where it becomes the espionage movie you're kind of
portion,
hinting at, yeah. Which is still good. Like it's still very withholding. Like the amount, again, like the beginning of the movie, this movie does a whole. And it sounds bizarre to say about this movie. The movie where the heads explode does a whole lot with a whole little.
It does, yeah.
Like you could tell this entire story in like 5 minutes, honestly.
Yeah. I
in a way, not to say that, and again, this is 1981, so none of this has been as overdone as it is now. There's still an aspect to, and we talked about this with Orient Express a lot too, of it being the first time this has kind of been done in a way, or in this way, or so. But either way, they're together now, and they're moving on, kind of them against the world at this point, or them against Michael Ironside. What's his name? Revik.
Daryl Revik.
Which is good. Yeah. It's a good name.
It's a good name. It's a good bad guy's name. So they're together. As they're running away from Revik, we find out that Revik is in charge of a company called Biocarbon Amalgamate that is giving, which again, just such a good bad company name, is making this drug that the doctor originally gave Cameron Vale to suppress all of the external voices. And now we're finding out that the drug is being given to infants in utero. Right. But before that happens, when he figures all this out, they realize that they have to stop the shipment coming from Consec that's being stolen from Consec by Biocarbon Amalgamate. And in order to do this, we get this amazing Ghost in the Machine thing.
Which I didn't see coming, kind of, I guess. I probably should have. I'm like, oh, we're taking it to computers, man. Like, that's some next level stuff. Like,
they can connect to a computer, man. They are a human modem.
Just another nervous system. Although when they show the close-ups of the computers, it's pretty hilarious.
Oh yeah, no,
we're talking reel to reel here. Like, these are analog computers.
Well, they do like there's a couple of sequences as he's connecting to the computers, trying to overload everything.
Which he does through the phone.
Which he does through, and it's a pay phone at that. He connects to them, and they can see him doing all the stuff. And they're just like, which by the way, I love that sequence where you have all these engineers who are apparently the smartest engineers like in the world doing this stuff, and they're like, well, somebody hacked in. We can't do anything, but we can watch him do stuff.
Yeah.
And then he goes, the engineer's like, well, we could destroy everything, but that will literally destroy everything. And I love the idea that these companies had some built-in function that they could call on a computer that will cause all of their computers to explode.
Well, okay, so there maybe that's up for grabs, because there's basically what happens is while he's connected to the computer, the bad guy figures it out, which actually I want to give him credit. I think as much as Stephen Lack and Jennifer O'Neill kind of, again, now I know they haven't been given much to work with, but aren't standouts in here. Like Michael Ironside and the guy who plays Keller, which is kind of the main concept bad guy, Lawrence Dane, kind of act circles around everybody else.
Definitely.
Basically. Yeah.
And keeping in mind, Ironside was still relatively green at this point too. He didn't have a ton of titles.
He's good. I mean, maybe it's just comparatively speaking here because the others weren't given.
Well, he's always been solid though. He's
okay. He is. He's good. So. But yeah, the Lawrence Dane also like he figures it out that he's hacked into the computer and is basically like shut it down. You know, how do I hurt him? Basically.
Right. No, and that's what he says.
So the scientist says maybe if we destroy the computers, it'll hurt him too. So whether or not the explosions come from the fact that they cut off a scanner mid-scan. I don't know. Like,
I like to assume they blew the computers up because it seems like every movie from the 70s and 80s that had like a self-destruction thing in a computer room, it caused the thing to explode into fire.
Yes,
So,
very true.
you
Yes, appropriate.
Yeah.
In any event.
This whole and this was, like you said though, that sequence what you previously mentioned too, something that was super prescient, the whole ghost in the machine thing, the being connected to a computer, and you know, maybe Cronenberg wasn't thinking, you know, the way we have it now where we're literally connected.
No.
But
like there's a suspension of disbelief that goes on here. But it's beautiful and
you can definitely
very enjoyable.
But it's something that like you see it and you can't help but make the correlation between then and now and say, like, how do you not see that connection?
Yeah,
you know?
Good stuff. No.
And this leads us to our final confrontation between Revik and Vale, where we get the one thing is one of those moments where I was, even the first time I saw it, and still to this day, I kind of go,
Really? Okay.
It's the one pseudo twist in the movie where we find out that Revik and Vale were baby brothers, and that Daddy was the head doctor at Consec, and he was the one that gave his wife the drug that created them, and he's the one that realized, and blah blah blah. So
that's why they're the most powerful, because they're the oldest.
Because they're the oldest, and that's also why they mentioned that they are the oldest two that they've seen yet. Right. Because,
but yeah, I mean, tying up all the loose ends is not the thing that makes this movie. But that's
this moment. This is probably. I would say that this is probably Stephen Lack's best moment in the movie as an actor. It's probably his best performance with him and Michael Ironside 1-to-1, and this is another one where I love Dick Smith's makeup on this, man. It is so good. The veins, like the way they pop up and like really. Like they really get out there, and then they start slowly like spilling blood out, and it's just so good.
Squirting, as some
squirting. Yes, I agree. Squirting.
No, it's good. It holds up. It's pretty gross.
It's pretty gross, and it going back to the one thing that I mentioned earlier on, where they don't tie up the whole concept of the hippies realizing that the scanning together makes them more powerful. We get a situation here where between the two, Michael Ironside and Revik and Vale realizes that if he kind of gives himself,
Vale is clearly losing the battle, like he's, his skin's starting to come off in chunks,
but he realizes if he gives up the corporeal form and just gives all of it and makes that full connection to Michael, he can take over Michael Ironside, because Michael Ironside is not expecting it or whatever, and he does,
or doesn't know, or
we're given a thing ending where Jennifer O'Neill wakes up from being knocked out. She's brought into the room where the fight happened. The Cameron Vale character is now totally just burned to a crisp.
Oh, very good.
And
unplanned.
And Michael Ironside is in the corner. He lowers his jacket. His eyes are all nice and blue, like Stephen Lack's are, and he says, "It's me," and that's the end of the movie.
It is. And honestly, he was in a corner with a jacket over his head like that. I don't know how that breaks some of it for me. I get they wanted to reveal, but it's like the character in the movie literally wanted to reveal or something. Why is he hiding in the corner with a jacket over his head?
The assumption I go with that's my headcanon for that is it's that whole like, don't look at my face. You won't be able to believe that it's me if you see who I am. So it's that like, it's a Phantom of the Opera thing almost.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, either way. So Scanners is a pretty good movie, it turns out. And if I could say one more thing, I've already compared this to, what are the words? We've already said masterpiece and work of art and
Picasso.
My brother's wallet. Picasso was another one. Yeah. There was also a point where I was wondering if Cronenberg was just Shakespeare. You know how that goes?
Sure.
Because the one thing that sticks, I'm by no means a Shakespeare scholar, but the one thing that sticks in my head was the fact that Shakespeare wrote most of his stuff for the rabble.
Yeah.
But it's still works of art, obviously, and now as we can appreciate them as such. But is Cronenberg just Shakespeare, and are we just the rabble?
Deep thoughts coming from Book Club for Movies. That was Scanners, everybody. If you like what we had to say or you got more to add, hit us up, podcast at bookclubformovies.com. You can hit us over at Twitter, Book Club for Movies. Next week, we will not have a podcast coming out as we are both going out of town. However, we will still have an assignment for 2 weeks.
And as such, we'll give you some time to save up your money.
Yeah. In theaters, go check out John Krasinski and Emily Blunt in A Quiet Place and let us know what you think about it. Really excited for this one.
Yeah, so that'll be fun.
Let's now get to the rest of the show because there's definitely more movies that we watched.
Not for me this week.
Oh, okay.
Somehow.
Well,
so
I could fill it out with a few, but I'm only going to fill it out with one.
Okay, fair enough.
I watched Academy Award winning Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water.
Oh, nice.
Movie
hot on the heels of Hellboy 2 we talked about last week.
Indeed. Like kind of an inspiration, actually. Rolls in at 2 hours and 3 minutes. Written by Del Toro himself and Vanessa Taylor. Stars Sally Hawkins, Octavia Spencer, Michael Shannon, Richard Jenkins, Doug Jones, and special shout out to Michael Stuhlbarg, who you and I had a conversation about a couple of episodes back.
Men in Black 3.
It might have been it. Or
also before that, actually, we talked about
A Serious Man.
A Serious Man, that's right, yes.
And he popped up in this, and I went, oh, it's that guy, and I couldn't remember his name, but I was like, it's A Serious Man, and Beth was like, it's a serious movie. Everything that was said about this movie is right. It is the best Del Toro movie. It's the most beautiful Del Toro movie. It has some of the best performances out of a Del Toro movie. Sally Hawkins, this was said probably 1,000 times over, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to echo it because it's easily the best way to put it. Sally Hawkins and Doug Jones get more out in that movie without saying a word than in hundreds of other movies I've seen in the past forever.
That's cool.
They emote in such a way, and she is so wonderful and beautiful and brilliant in this role. She just took it on, and Octavia Spencer is her compatriot at the job. So the movie takes place in the 60s in this weird government facility where Michael Shannon is a government spook of some type. You're not really ever given an agency, but he's some kind of 3-letter agency type thing. He reports to military. So, who knows? He brings in a fish man. I mean, that's essentially, it's the creature from the Black Lagoon. That's what it is. It's freaking Abe Sapien, played by Doug Jones.
It's literally Abe Sapien.
Yeah, I mean, it does there's a lot of Abe Sapien look to it for sure. But there is more creature feel to it than Abe Sapien.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And Octavia Spencer is her compatriot. They're both cleaning ladies at this facility that clearly deals with stuff not just like him. Not just like this weird, the fish man. There's other things, but we're never privy to them, and it doesn't matter because it's not about those things. Octavia Spencer's outstanding. Just phenomenal. But
always good. Yeah.
Beyond the shadow of a doubt, the freaking standout, the star of this movie was Richard freaking Jenkins. Michael Shannon's amazing. He is always a good bad guy because he's got that face where you just kind of want to hate him.
Sure.
But he's great. Doug Jones is terrific in the costuming. He emotes so well. Michael Stuhlbarg is the bad guy turned good guy turned bad guy. Still a good guy, that awesome. But Richard Jenkins' character is Sally Hawkins' neighbor. He knows that she can't, they hang out, they spend time together. She ostensibly takes care of him. She brings him food and all that stuff, and they spend time together. And his job is, he used to be, a graphic artist. He did artwork for advertisements, and he hasn't been able to get a job for a while. So he's, not in a great place. And when it turns out that very quickly, Michael Shannon is abusing the fish man, she immediately, you know, has that we have to save him and wants Richard Jenkins' help, and then he doesn't want to help, and then he will help, and he is telling the story. The story is told as kind of a flashback from his point of view, but not, because we do see all the things that happen in the thing. But it's another, like, how it starts out. It's that, like, Del Toro, beyond the shadow of a doubt, beyond so many other directors, knows how to pick an opening sequence and an opening set of lines, and you're in. You're just there. You're in that movie.
That guy's a storyteller, man.
And again, it's the colors in this movie, the look of it. It's got this, like, these neon and these greens, these heavy greens and heavy reds, and like I can't say enough about it. Sure. And it's a freaking incredible movie, and I love all of his movies. Del Toro is one of the few directors that, for my money, has never put out a bad movie. Blade 2 is not a bad movie. It's a fun romp.
Yeah. Nope. I cannot think of a single one.
And that's the one that I think a lot of people, if they were going to point to the weakest link maybe in his, but it's not. Like, all of his Spanish language stuff, outstanding. All of his English language stuff, still outstanding to me. I still love all of it. I loved Crimson Peak. Beth and I were over the moon for Crimson Peak. That movie hit so many things for us, aesthetically, story-wise, the gothic romance. Like, we loved it. Yep. This movie,
it's still his best.
This movie is by far, like, I mean, I'm talking leaps and bounds for me personally. And keeping in mind, my favorite Del Toro movie prior to this was Pan's Labyrinth. And Pan's Labyrinth, man,
it is that.
The Shape of Water is a beautiful, wonderful, incredibly told fairy tale that I can't say enough good things about, and it deserved every Oscar it was nominated for.
It's amazing more. It got the recognition. Like, I love that, like, stuff. I mean,
and this
say what you will about awards shows, the Oscars first and foremost. Like, it's cool to see it not go under any radar type thing, you know.
And when you watch this movie, you totally get that, like, there's no way this could be, like, you can't see it as Oscar fair.
Right.
But but the thing is, like, every single performance and the whole movie, the look, all of it totally is. It's, you look at it and it's the moment, it literally is the moment you see Doug Jones as the fish man. Like, that's where you're like, this can't be an Oscar movie. Why? Even like they don't play it up as a joke at any point. There's nothing.
They couldn't. No, I would imagine that would totally that would ruin it.
The movie absolutely has levity to it. It's not a downer the whole movie. There's lots of really fun bits. There is one sequence that I will call out, and I will specifically call it out because the only way I can say it is it was enrapturing. Like, I was so there. I was so into it, and it's a musical sequence, and I don't want to.
Really?
I don't want to give that away.
I'm going to look that up right now, actually,
because it's an incredible moment, and all of it, the way it comes together. It again, it's one of those things that it just feels so bizarre to even say, but obviously a huge chunk of this movie is learning to accept that not everybody is necessarily whole, or maybe everybody is whole, but being whole doesn't mean the same thing to everybody.
Right.
And then accepting that everybody's wholeness doesn't have to be the same, and that you can still connect. And it is very much about connecting on multiple levels and being and loving more than just, I guess, yourself.
That's fantastic though. That's how you do it. Like, when you talk about levity, I'm like, they can't at any point be like, LOL fish guy, or the whole thing's shot. Like, that movie can't do that anymore,
It's really good. It's really, really good. And I highly recommend it to anybody.
Highly recommended from the book club, from the Matt at the book club at the movies. bookclubformovies.com. None of that was true or correct in any way. This has been Book Club for Movies. You can go check us out at bookclubformovies.com and send us emails at podcast@bookclubformovies.com. We are going to do A Quiet Place in 2 weeks. So check it out if you can and let us know what you think so we can let you know what you think right back at you.
And that would be great. And thanks once again to @BitterGourd for the suggestion on scanners.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Really
actually.
thrilled that we got to have this conversation because sometimes these movies don't pop into my head.
Book Club for Movies.